All right, I have one past the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on these disclaimers. So a few things to discuss. First and foremost is that we are recording this. So if for any reason any of you on the call right now, having shown your names as the participant list, if you're uncomfortable with that, please leave the meeting and come back in under some sort of anonymous name. And also, in addition to that, when you do come into the meeting, I will have everyone muted, but I do ask that you please keep your videos off. And if it isn't off when you come in, I'll go ahead and turn them off for you if you don't notice that. In addition, if you look to the very bottom left corner of your screen, if you need closed captions, they're available there, but they have to be turned on by each individual on their own screen. So do click that little CC button if you need that. And in addition, lastly, because I have everyone muted and we don't want, I guess at this point we've got 360 participants, we don't want everybody just speaking and coming off mute whenever. We do ask that you put your questions in the chat, and we will have one person from our side going through and speaking to those questions, and then someone else answering those questions as well. That is all for me as far as disclaimers go. I will go ahead and kick this over to Mr. Ed Clark, who I believe is here now.
Good afternoon, and thank you. I'm also going to turn this over to Dr. Graziano, the Director of the Office of Water Protection, and then I'll offer my comments after Tom. Tom?
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Ed. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the webinar. We're really excited about this afternoon's presentation and moving our website forward. This effort, as you know, if you saw the story map or read up about it in the PNS, represents an integration of all the actionable information that we produce from a water resources perspective in the National Weather Service. So providing all of that information essentially at your fingertips through one application, we think is really a big step forward. And we solicited.
Tom, you have to unmute yourself again. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, sorry. I don't know what you heard about what actually went through there, but we're really excited about this presentation today and soliciting your feedback and hearing from you as it relates to the integration of the actionable water information that we provide within the Weather Service. And I think, as many of you know, this is a long-standing activity. We're on schedule to implement this in the spring of next year. It'll represent a full integration of everything that you had at your fingertips and currently access via AHAPS, as well as additional information to include the National Water Model guidance, our experimental flood inundation mapping, our dynamic mapping, which is now available for the first 10% of the country and will be implemented nationally over the course of the next 3 years, as well as a number of other capabilities that we've developed and we're in the process of deploying to really transform the way we do business and the information we provide to better inform the decisions that you all make. So with that, I will turn it over to Ed for some additional opening remarks before we jump right in. Thank you.
And thanks, Tom. I'm looking at the list of attendees that jump in here, and I'm seeing a lot of our colleagues and friends from other federal agencies. One of the things I'm excited about with the launch of the National Water Protection Service is our first foray to RESTful data, making it accessible and machine readable to not only applications and users, but to those who want to embed and seek to embed water forecast information to their own application. So we'll hear a lot more about today and more to come in the future as we go from not only the deterministic RESTful service, but our probabilistic, our forecast uncertainty will, by this time year, be looking at making those available through the REST data. So with that, Angela, I will turn it back to your capable hands to moderate this. I want to thank our team of experts, the integrated working team that has been working tirelessly on the vision, creation, development, testing, evaluation, and NWPS. They are two less, but here for three of those experts today. And with that, Angela, back over to you.
Thank you, Tom and Ed, so much for opening that up. There are open mics, and unfortunately, because of that, I can unmute everyone or mute everyone together. I know a lot of people are still coming in, but when they do come in while people are speaking, I do have to mute them individually. So please do your best when you come in to make sure that you're muted so you're not accidentally speaking over some of the people who are presenting, since we're about to start the formal presentation now. Being said, I do believe, Lori, you're up next.
Okay. Good afternoon and good morning to all on the webinar. My name is Lori Hogan. I'm a Hydrologic Services Chief here at Eastern Region Headquarters. I'd like to begin today saying that I represent a huge team of people behind the scenes. We have River Forecast Center people, Weather Forecast Office people, National Water Center people, modelers, web developers, GIS specialists, and many hydrologists across the country who have been involved in this effort to date. So I just want to highlight that it's a big team effort here over at the National Weather Service. Additionally, today we're going to have two other speakers besides myself, Craig Schmidt, who's the Senior Service Hydrologist from the WFO at Twin Cities, Minneapolis area, Minnesota, and then the Senior Service Hydrologist from WFO St. Louis, Missouri. With that, Mark Fuchs, and with that, I'm going to go to the next slide, please. Okay, the objectives for our webinar today are really to introduce all our National Weather Service partners to the National Water Prediction Service webpage. This is our AHAPS replacement, but it's also combining the existing water.noaa.gov website along with it. So that's, really what Tom and Ed are speaking to, and it's the integration and the provision of really all the hydrologic and water information of the National Weather Service into this particular web page. During this webinar, we're going to provide you with an understanding of our project timeline, and then we're going to have questions at the end and let you know how you can provide our team with feedback about the new web page. Next slide. So for our webinar agenda today, we're going to talk a little bit about why we're moving to National Water Prediction Service. We're going to go through the key features and functionalities, including live demos from myself, Craig, and Mark. I have one slide about API data services, and we'll get to that later. Again, an update on our timeline and some of the schedule information, where to find resources, and a whole page of URLs that I want everybody to have a camera ready to take a picture of that page. And then also, again, how you're going to be able to give us some feedback. At this time, I wanted Emily, who's also supporting the webinar, she wants to go ahead and paste in that URL information into the chat message. And if people want to grab that URL information from the chat and paste it into your own document, feel free. We don't want anybody to miss any important URLs during our webinar. Next slide. Okay, so hopefully our audience today is well versed in our webpage AHAPS, which is at water.weather.gov. AHAPS has been around almost 2 decades now, and it's really been the foundational source of water prediction information for the country. We use partner stream gauges for all our observations, and then we add the value of the forecast services here at the AHAPS webpage. And you can see our hydrograph page below the national map. Again, we focus on our category thresholds of action, minor, moderate, and major in most of our services. Another page that you may not be as familiar with is called water.noaa.gov. This is the web page for the Office of Water Prediction, or the National Water Center, part of the National Weather Service. To date, they've had their national water model services at this particular website. And what's happening as we move forward is we're moving the capabilities of water.weather.gov to water.noaa.gov. And additionally, at the National Water Center, we have a new group there called the Water Prediction Operations Division. And that division has some experimental products, and their link is at weather.gov/OWP. And as we go into NWPS, it's really a merger of all these services sources, plus all the additional new experimental services that Tom and Ed had mentioned in their introduction. Next slide. So on this particular slide, you can see AHAPS on the left, the water.noaa.gov site on the right, and then the merging of these two sites into one service. Some of the technology behind this service is REST-based web services are informing the new NWPS site. It's also driven by API information, and it's also driven by new hydrologic database. And again, supported the same way AHAPS and water.noaa.gov has been in the past. Currently, this site is at a URL, preview.water.noaa.gov, and it's currently an active development site. When we cut over to the final website in end of March, the URL will be water.noaa.gov, and it'll replace the capabilities on the upper right-hand display. Next slide. So we'll quickly move along, and we're going to be doing some demos. The first demo today is going to be led by Craig Schmidt. He's going to provide an introduction to our spatial displays, discuss the layer and legend area on the website, talk about the precipitation data that's available, and a few other topics. Our second demo is going to focus on our hydrograph page in our area hydrographs, and that will be led by Mark Fuchs. And then wrapping up towards the end, I'll be giving an introduction to the National Water Model portion of the web displays, along with the experimental flood inundation mapping and the partner flood inundation maps. With that, I'm going to thank you, and I'm going to turn over to Craig and show his screen. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that, Lori. Let me get my screen up here. And if someone could let me know when that's showing so I can get going here.
Looks good.
All right. Thank you very much. So once again, thank you all for coming. I think we see over 500 people here now. So I really appreciate you all taking the time to take a look at our new system here. What you see on the screen right now is not the new system, it's the old system. This is our AHAPS map. As you can see, it took about half of your screen real estate. We had separate displays for all of the different information, one for observations, a different one for forecasts, a different one for precipitation, and that sort of thing. So I want to move to another tab here. And this is taken off of our user guide story map. I'll post this link in our chat here in just a moment. Anybody here? I see some. Okay, everybody's got sound okay? Just wanted to double check. I saw some trouble in there.
Yeah, Craig, you sound good for most users. Okay. And so just keep continuing, okay, please.
All right, thanks, Lori. I appreciate that. This is a little slider bar. So this shows the old AHAPS map, and if we slide it across, this is slides what we see for your screen real estate with the new map. It uses the entire screen with a legend over on the right side, and you control everything on the map using the legend that is on the right side. We'll go ahead and I'll do a live demo from here showing that. So move on to the next tab here. So this is the national map. Just doing a couple of quick real estate look here. Across the top, we have some links to water center operations, other water information, and other weather service information. Of course, we said your legend is over on the right, and that can be turned off button right here. And as we go down the page, down to the bottom, we have links to National Water Center discussions, outlooks, and other information. So I'm going to go back to the main map, and we'll start looking at the features of NWPS and the features of the legend on the right. The default is it brings up all observation sites and forecasts above action stage. You can, looking at the legend over here on the right side, if you click either of the columns, the observation column or the forecast column, you turn all of those on or off. So I just clicked all forecast information on. So now we see all of the points that are also have forecasts in effect, but are not above flood stage. If you click the forecast column off, you can turn all forecasts off. So instead of having separate tabs, we can see all of our different information on this at the same time. And then you can click the individual types of forecasts, like out of service, data not current. You can turn off the non-flood points or turn them back on and look at things that way. I'll go back to just having forecasts of low water threshold or action stage or above. And I'm going to zoom in to an area over here, the state of Washington, where we actually do have a little bit of hydrologic activity today. And I'm going to do a search. I've done this earlier. We're going to go ahead and just do a search in the search bar for Washington. And it brings up anything that has the word Washington in it, including the state of Washington. And if you click that state, it will zoom in to show state of Washington on your screen. And so you can get a quick look. If you happen to be with the state of Washington and want to just focus on your area, you can look at this right here and just search to your area. You can also search for a river forecast center. Let's look at, like, say, North Central. Start typing North Central. RFC North Central pops up here, and the screen display will switch to showing that area.
No worries.
I'm going to go back to the main. If you click the home button, by the way, it takes you back to the national display. And I'm going to skip down a little bit here to the bottom of the legend, which is the administrative boundaries. And this shows what types of boundaries you can add to your map. We can put RFC boundaries, National Weather Service office boundaries, states or counties. The counties don't show up until you zoom in a little bit farther. See those here. So click it on. Apologies. There we go. So the county boundaries then show up, and we can change the color and opacity of those boundaries right here. So changing to black, that might be a little bit too much. We could make those, say, a light gray right there. And I'm getting a repeat from somebody. All right, thank you. Let's go back out to the national set. So I'm going to take a look at this search bar once again. Let's go back to the state of Washington. So I'm going to put Washington in here again and bring us to the state. We have a button over here called Limit by Boundary. And if you click on that button, that removes everything on the map except for whatever you're searched for. If it's a state, if it's a weather forecast office area, if it's a RFC area, it can be a water resource region. In this case, I've got the state of Washington. And what is interesting with this is that the key on the legend also changes so that you're only seeing the points that are inside the state of Washington at this point. And you can get a quick situational awareness count of how many points you've got at different levels. So in this case, we have no observations that are at action stage or higher, but we do have 5 points at action stage in terms of the forecast, 4 points at minor flood stage, and 1 at moderate. And so what you can do is you can then set this as a bookmark with these settings on there, and you can have this as your situational display for your state, for your WFO area, for your RFC or water resource region, and have a quick look each day for a quick briefing to see how many points you've got at different levels at any one time. Going to zoom in a little bit more and look at one of the details of our display, and that is the fact that we have our observations are the circle information that you can see on here, and the forecast is the square around it. So anything that's a forecast point that has a square is showing you what level of forecast, the official River Forecast Center forecast is expected. So like at this point that's underneath my cursor right now, the Chehalis River Net Porter. The green circle in the middle means the current observation is below flood stage, below action stage, but it is forecast at orange, which is the minor flood stage. So if we click on the point, you get a quick look at the hydrograph that shows exactly that. Our current observations are on the left side of the dotted line, and they are well below flood stage. But if we take a look at our forecast moving forward, it does move up to action stage, going from around 32 feet to 48 in this case. We're going to look a lot more at the hydrographs later with Mark, but I just wanted to give you a quick look at that right now.
Okay.
And so once again, you could bookmark. I'm just going to go ahead and we are at state of Washington size limit by boundary. I'm going to go ahead and hit the bookmark page, get that into hydro. I'm going to just show you that when I went to here, my bookmark now for that was for the state of Washington quick situational awareness look with all of the information in the key here on the right side. So I'm going to go back to the main map here, excuse me. Go back up to the national display. And going down over on the on our layer map, we can click and just look at sites that have long-range flood outlook display. This does show the 3-month probabilistic forecast from our river forecast centers. Shows what sites are expected at a 50% chance. That's the default. You can change that to look at different confidence levels. If you click on those, you will get the hydrograph page for that site, and then you'll have to scroll down to see the probabilistic information. Mark will also be showing that again a little bit later on. So back to the main observations and forecasts. I'm going to skip the FIM gauge portion here for Lori later on. And I'm going to go ahead now and show the next selection, which is the hazard map. The hazard map defaults to showing all National Weather Service. I'm going to take off the limit by boundary for now. It shows all National Weather Service hydrologic hazards. And right now, I think we only have a flood warning. I don't even know where we've got that in effect right now. I think that's maybe down in Florida. Yeah, we've got one flood warning in effect down here in Florida right now. If you click on that green flood warning, you get all of the information for the flood warning, when it's effective, when it expires, and all of the details about that product. That hazard can be, you can change the opacity of the hazard on here, as well as just change the opacity of that on here. What is another new feature of NWPS that we didn't have before is that we can also look at all hazards all hazards, not just hydrologic hazards. So I'm clicking that on here, and we get a look at all hazardous products that are in effect for the Weather Service right now. So I'm just going to click on one up here. We've got lake effect snow warnings going on, and again, all the details can be brought in here. So not only is NWPS a good hydrologic display, but you can actually use this as a good watch, warning, and advisory map too. And all the details will be included in there. And again, the opacity can be changed for as much as you want to see. I'm going to bring that back to the hydrologic ones and turn that off. I should go back. I neglected to mention at the very beginning that we have 4 different types of maps that you can use when you're looking at it. Defaults to a topographic. We also have a satellite display, a dark or a light background. Sometimes you like to use the dark background. And some of that is showing up here. I'll turn off our search bar there. So I'll do the rest of the display using the default topographic. So going down a little farther, the next section we have here is the precipitation section. Precipitation estimate here. It comes up and it defaults to your current day, 1 day precipitation that has been sent in from the RFCs. This is the stage 4 precipitation data that is a combination of radar and observations that has been quality controlled. Defaults to 12Z to 12Z of your current day. Your date selection is right here. You can go back looking up to 365 days in the past. And then the types of information that we can look at are right here. We can look at the last 1 day. You can look at the last, say, we want to look at how much we had over the last week. We can bring that up. It's fairly quick considering the amount of data that it's working with right now. And we can go back so on. If you want to look at seasonal precipitation, you can look at 30, 60, 90 days. You can look at water year. So let's bring up the water year to date precipitation. And of course, the key for what you're looking at is all down here on the right. This water year may take a second to load here, given the time frame we have. And I probably will have us do that another time. So we'll stick back with the last 7 days that we had on there. We can also choose your normal precipitation or look at your departure from normal or percent of normal for each of these precipitation displays. So it's taking just a second, partly for all of this to come up. And again, your precipitation, you can change your opacity here as well. Let's go back to our default of 1 day. And we're just going a little bit slow here right now. I'm just going to restart that real fast here. The last thing I wanted to show on the precipitation screen is the part here where you can display the estimated precipitation on hover. So if you click that button and then go hover over the maximum, you can see how much rainfall was reported in each of these grid boxes. And as we zoom in, the resolution gets a little finer. So like in this case, over by the Great Lakes, we've seen a little over 1 inch in the last 24 hours. But you can do that to take a look at any grid box in the precipitation area. So we'll turn that off and move to the next section. Just a quick look with National Water Model information. Lori will be covering that here in just a little bit, but I can show the stream reaches show up. When you click on the water model button, you will see this splash screen that comes up that gives a little information on the water model. But what the key part here is that National Water Model guidance is strictly guidance. It is not an official National Weather Service forecast. It has not been quality controlled by a forecaster. It is just straight model guidance and should only be used as guidance or as something as part of the decision-making process, but should not be your decision maker. The stream reaches do show up on the map, and as we zoom in, we get more and more of the reaches. But again, Lori will be covering this here a little bit later on, so I will move on down from there. Same thing for flood inundation mapping. Lori will be covering that, so I'm going to go to the snow analysis. On our snow analysis, we do get a look at a daily snow depth map from our National Remote Sensing Center. And so we do see a little bit of that snow from the last few days in the Midwest here, as well as, of course, in the Rockies and in the Northeast. If we zoom in, we can see, looking at the key on the right, that we've got some 4 to 10 inch amounts here in central Kansas. That is on the ground right now. This is a single map that shows up at from 12Z each morning. And the same thing for snow water equivalent. And the same thing for snow water equivalent. Normally we'd be seeing the 12Z map from of how much water is included in that snow. It is not showing up this morning. Again, this is a test site, and it's not. Oh, here we go. Now we're starting to see some of that. So here is that snow in central Kansas once again. And the amount of water in that snow looks to be between around 1 inch to 1.5 inches or so. So move on from there, the administrative boundaries we showed earlier. So I think that is about it for our map display. And so from this point, I am going to turn this over to Mark Fuchs from St. Louis, who will take us through the hydrograph page.
Thank you much, Craig, and I will sharing my screen here. And hopefully you can see that.
Yeah, Mark, I can confirm I see your screen.
Great. And like Craig, I wanted to start off with what we have had, the exiting AHAPS display. Here I go to the Black River near Annapolis in my own hydrologic service area down in Reynolds County, Missouri. And you'll notice there is no control that you have as a user over how much data you get to see. You get to see here 5 days going back in history and 5 days going forward with the forecast, which is how much data we get from the Lower Mississippi River Forecast Center at this site. Now we'll move forward to the NWPS display for the same site, Black River near Annapolis. And it looks very similar upon first inspection. You get default view of 3.5 days going forward, 3.5 days going back. But notice the zoom capability. You can zoom into 2 days or just 1 day. But from the 7-day default view, you can actually expand that out to 14 days, or you can see everything that the data allows, which is, in this case, 30 days going back and 5 days going forward. So if I click on the all button, that's all of your data right there. Goes all the way back to late October and carries through late November, the current date, and forward 5 days for the forecast. Lots of versatility here with this. And if we go back to our original 7-day view, you can also move this around. You can look back, slide the slider bar all the way back to the first bit of data if you'd like to, or go forward on the forecast, or you can use the bar handles here to expand your view. A lot of versatility that AHAPS has never had. It's pretty handy. Now this default view of 7 days. Oh, another thing you can do with this is scale to flood categories. So with that click, you can suddenly see not just the observed data and forecast data, but also all the categories in the vertical, not just the default minor in action at this point. So if I go back to the default view, let's take a look at the tab at the top. That was the official tab that I had. That's the default view. But if I click on the tab to the right of that, you get the National Water Model Guidance. And this gives you a variety of data. In this particular case, you have readouts from 3 different data sources. You have the water center analysis at 4 feet. You have the observed data at 3.83 feet. And you have the medium range blend, the MRB, at 3.8. And as you move forward, we have the SR, or the short range output from the National Water Model. You have the forecast from the River Forecast Center at the Lower Mississippi RFC, and you have data from the MRB, the medium range blend. And that medium range blend, the SR data only goes out 18 hours or so, but the medium range blend goes out for several days. So there's lots of options there to see with National Water guidance, National Water Model guidance. Going back to the default data, you see your legend here with observed, forecast, and record level, along with the categories of action stage, minor, moderate, and major. Those are defined. Below that, you have the hydro, what we call hydro notes, which are basically little disclaimers that apply specifically to that point. And that was displayed on AHAPS as well. The flood impacts below that defaults at 3 of the lower level impacts. And that's fine, but if you click on the drop down here, you can see all the flood impacts instantly that are available at this site. You go to the right of the flood impacts area, you see gauge information, the coordinates, lat long coordinates, the river forecast center responsible for this forecast, the state that it's in, WFO that it's in. And if you click on any of these links, you go to the National Water or NWPS view of these particular links, LMRFC's view, or just the state of Missouri, or the WFO, like Craig was showing earlier. Also lists the county and a link to the water resources link for the USGS, along with the gauge specific link, and that'll take you to all the available data types that USGS provides at that point. Okay, moving on down to the map under gauge location. At this point, we have it just displays the marker where the forecast point is located, but it also gives you an opportunity to display categorical flood inundation at this point, and second load. And another thing that we're allowed to see here is the various national flood hazard layers that is available through FEMA. And it's having a hard time displaying in this particular case, but it's there at generally most of the points we have. And I believe I checked that earlier, but in any case. Okay, you see a thumbnail of, or an abbreviated list, I should say, of recent crests on the right-hand side. But then there's a link down here, show all crests, and it will give you a pop-up giving you all the crests rather than an extra tab, which is what AHAPS used to do and still does. And the same thing with the historic crests. If you click on the show all crests, it gives you that pop-up of all the crests ordered by crest rather than by date, which is what the recent crest link shows you. Paging on down, you see the gauge photos available at this site on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, whatever long-term probability information we may have at this point. The first two links would be for the week by week and the entire 90-day outlook that we generate on a monthly basis. And then on the far right, we have a newer option, which is the 10-day river probabilities link through what we call HEFS, the Hydrologic Ensemble Forecast System. And that can be a handy link if you're interested in what might be happening beyond the next day or two of forecast rainfall. This includes forecast rainfall for the next 10 days. So it can be pretty handy to evaluate probabilities in that range. All right, going back up to the top, to the forecast, you notice that there is a given extent with vertical extent, and that's basically defined by the data that that is in the last 30 days and the forecast data as well. Here is an example of what it looks like at a place where we are expecting flooding. Craig mentioned it earlier. There is flooding going on in the state of Washington, and this point is the Snoqualmie River near Carnation, Washington. And the default view only shows 3.5 days in the past and in the future. But if we look at the handlebars down below and what the data provides, you'll notice that the data does go up quite a bit. And our default view does show we have minor, moderate, major displayed. So you'd have to think that, yes, there is some more interesting data to look at here. So if we go all on this point, we can see, yes, we go to minor flooding out here about a week in the future or so. data provided by the Northwest River Forecast Center in this case, and getting up close to action in the past. So lots of options there, again, not available in AHAPS over its lifetime. Another point I wanted to show you here is from Eastern region, the Susquehanna River at Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And the main reason I wanted to show you this is because some of the legacy data available in AHAPS on the Eastern region sites, the 10-day HEFs, the 7-day NAIFs, and the 7-day GEFS are also available here. We're not taking anything away from you from what we've had in the past. And that is pretty much the extent of what I wanted to show you today. So I'll stop sharing the screen here and hand it off to Lori, who will talk in greater depth about flood inundation mapping options that you have.
Yeah. Let's see, I'm going to share my screen and move this out of the way. Let me do an audio check and a screen sharing check first.
Got them both, Lori.
Okay, thank you. So I'm gonna shut this down, and I'm gonna take over, and I'm going to talk about the National Water Model. Again, picking up where Craig had talked about on a spatial display, the National Water Model section is down here. What I have turned on right now is the National Water Model. You can see that I've chosen the red color, and I'm zoomed in up to an area here in the Pacific Northwest. And I chose this area really because there's some information from the water model out in that Monday to Tuesday timeframe next week. What you'll see as you look at the National Water Model, you have the higher order stream reaches. This is a stream reach that's order number 9. And then when you get to these smaller streams, more upstream of that bigger location, you can see that maybe there's not a gauge location on a particular stream reach. So I'm going to click on this particular stream reach, and it's a stream order number 5. And again, here's the display. We have the analysis side of that National Water Model hydrograph. Then we have that short range version of the hydrograph in that bright pink, which is a water model that's forced by the precipitation data of our HRRR model. Then when we get into this purple, that's a medium range forecast that comes from our National Blenda Model precip estimate. And again, like Craig and Mark had mentioned, if we move our slider bar to the right, and what we're doing is we're picking up into that time frame where we're having some precipitation in that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday time frame early next week. You can see from the cursor readout, our estimate of flow is reaching about 13,000 CFS. And again, this is model guidance data, not official forecast, but it can be a way of looking at streams that don't have gauges. And again, you have to take in the caveats of, is there a reservoir upstream that's being included? So you really have to read up on the National Water Model guidance before you kind of put it into your toolbox. So I did want to highlight that. And then if you, you can check out a reach that's downstream of a confluence. So again, wanted to highlight how you would go ahead and select that National Water Model stream reach from a national map, or the spatial displays from a state level or WFO level map interface. Additionally, under the National Water Model, we have 2 additional layers. One is called the National Soil Moisture Analysis layer from the National Water Model. And again, we see the drier areas are in the areas of the brown colors, with the bluer areas being the more wet soil moisture areas. Additionally, there's a opacity slider bar that we can use, and I'm going to click that and slide it to the left and fade out that layer. And then I'm going to bring in a National Water Model Analysis Anomaly layer. Again, this is derived from the National Water Model, and it's just one of the many products that's available from the National Water Model. Okay. With that, I'm going to move along into looking at the flood inundation. I'm going to zoom back out, and I'm first going to talk about the flood inundation that we're doing right now. And as of the end of September, we have 10% of the country that's using in where we're creating water model flood inundation map guidance, in addition to RFC-based guidance for gauge locations that don't have a partner inundation map. The two areas for the 10% experiment right now are down here in the state of Texas, and then up here in the northeastern United States. Texas is covered by several Texas WFOs, and up here in the northeast, it's covered by 4 WFOs and 3 of the Eastern Region River Forecast Centers. As I sort of start to zoom in here, you're going to notice there's a couple layers that are being displayed. This red outline layer is the layer that includes the 10% area where we have the experimental flood inundation maps. The red or the border, I'm sorry, the hatched area at the coastline is a coastal modeling zone. And it's that area where you're going to have influence from both a riverine or a freshwater effects and the coastal surge effects from the ocean or your estuary or water body there at the coast. The additional layer here is there's a levee information that turns off and on. Right now, that layer is not working very well. We need to get it updated and working again. So I do apologize for that. With that, I'm going to turn off a couple of these layers, and I'm going to leave on just the inundation layer and the river flow layer. I want to explain the river flow layer just a bit. There's 3 choices with the river flow layer. The first choice is the RFC max forecast, and that will be include any RFC forecast that's over action stage. And I'm going to turn these on, and what you'll see is in my inundation coverage area, I don't have any locations that are above action stage today. If I did have minor, moderate, major, I'd have a colored dot here, and I'd be able to show you an inundation map associated with those different threshold layers. Since I don't have that available today, I'm going to make you aware of there's a National Water Model latest analysis. When I change to the National Water Model, you notice the colors change. And the National Water Model, because all the locations will not have those thresholds defined, we changed that color legend to be based on annual exceedance probabilities. And for the National Water Model latest analysis and forecast, when we have values that are in that 50% or high water threshold area up to the 2% annual exceedance, then we'll show locations that have that inundation. Because I looked ahead at some information, I'm going to zoom into the Ithaca, New York area, and I'm going to speak to some of these tributaries to the northeast of Ithaca and talk to you about information in that National Water Model Max Forecast group. So when I turn on this layer, first I'm going to look at river flow. I'm going to toggle that off and on. And you can see some of the flows are in this greater than 50% annual exceedance value. A couple might be slightly higher. And when we have those values exceeded, then we're going to have an inundation map available. And I'm going to show you that. And then I'm going to zoom into this particular location. A couple things to explain about the inundation maps. The inundation maps don't take out bridges. So it might show a road that's inundated, even though it's not. Generally speaking, the flows associated with the maps today are keeping the inundation really well within that floodplain of the various locations here. And I'm going to just zoom back over, turn on a national water model, and I'm going to disable that. And I'm going to highlight again some of the types of flows that are being experienced in that 5-day time frame. So again, relatively moderate minor stream flows, again, less than about 300 CFS in those reaches. Okay. So again, that's the information I wanted to show about the National Water Model and the inundation map. Again, this is the 10% locations for the country right now. We're gradually implementing it nationwide, and the goal is to have all the entire country with National Water Model and RFC inundation map by the end of the next 4 fiscal years. Okay, with that, I'm going to go over to one of our locations where we have a partnered inundation map. This is the Saddle River at Lodi. Again, I click over to the full information, and let's see, we go to that gauge map location. And over here on the lower left, we have the ability to activate flood inundation maps for this particular gauge. Again, the difference between this inundation map and those from the National Water Model or that other spatial display is these maps have used a high resolution a HEC-RAS model or hydraulic model, and it's been calibrated by that partner, usually the Army Corps or Silver Jackets project, but there's other partners that the Weather Service have across the country. When we look at this type of map, we're able to turn on the study boundaries. And again, this is the limit to the modeling effort by that partner. And I'll turn that back off. And then we're able to display it with our flood categories, minor, moderate, major. And if we get areas that go above those minor, moderate, major categories, we're able to look at them incrementally as we go up towards that record crest. Like most of our spatial displays, we have opacity slider bars, and we might have disclaimers or specific site information that's also available for that particular project set of maps. And then I think Mark had tried to display the FEMA hazard layers earlier. If you zoom in, usually they require a 1 to 40,000 map thresholds, but those will also display at most of our gauge locations around the country. I wanted to click on one additional location. This is example out in the Western US again. And again, we can activate this flood inundation map out here. Again, with the same type of features, we can highlight the different flood categories. And I'll also highlight the difference here in that in almost all the partner flood inundation maps, what we've done is we've been able to clip out any bridges that aren't inundated with these very detailed project maps. Okay. And with that, Chip, I would like to go back. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and have Chip take over sharing the slides once again. Okay. So the next area that I wanted to speak about today is really the background technology behind our web page, and highlight that most of NWPS is now driven by an application programming interface, and it's based on Open API 3.0. The website, by being driven by this API, we are also allowing it to be opened and used by our many partners around the country. Early in November, we conducted an API webinar. I put the link to the YouTube video in this slide. Additionally, you can find that particular API webinar at the National Weather Service YouTube channel. If you can just search that for yourself. Again, API documentation is shown below here. And if you watch the webinar, if you're interested in accessing that API, you'll find probably everything you need there that's from that training video. Additionally, what the capability of this API allows you to combine another API like the USGS API, the National Water Prediction Service API, and make your own graphics. And so you can create your own information to drive your own decision support tools at your own location with this service. Next slide, please. So I want to talk a little bit about our schedule. The schedule is pretty important to most of us. We really want to make sure that the National Water Prediction website really is meeting your needs before we transition it to operational. Currently, on the top blue line here, we have the AHAPS prediction, the AHAPS website, and our plan right now is to activate NWPS in the late March timeframe and continue AHAPS for 60 days after that activation. Again, I mentioned that we had a partner API webinar. The API is available for your internal local development, any applications you have, and the preview URL I provided on the last slide. Again, we're having our partner NWPS webinars today and tomorrow. We might add additional ones if there's requests for that. Back on November 15th, we did start the 30-day public test period. That will continue until December 15th. Currently, the software is frozen at the current status during this 30-day public testing period. After December 19th, we will start making some additional updates to the NWPS website to fix a few bugs, add a few new capabilities with the time we have available. In the January, late December timeframe, we'll be issuing a service change notice. And again, over here on the lower right-hand side is the timeframe when we expect National Water Prediction Service to become operational with that 60-day overlap period with AHAPS. Next slide, please. Okay, so get your cameras out, take a picture of this. I think Emily's chatted some of these into our chat box already. A lot of really good, important URLs here. I'm going to talk through them a little bit. The first one is our NWPS staging website. It's accessible by all of you right now. Go ahead, go to your favorite WFO, RFC, or state level view of this website using that search button, search area that Craig had highlighted. Again, our API interface is, you're able to see it at this document. We also encourage everybody to go, if you're interested in using that API, which essentially replaces XML and things like our, you're able to get the flood impact statements from every gauge with this API now. And you're also able to access your static hydrographs with this API. So again, try to go and watch this API webinar that we mentioned on the last slide. I've also provided here a WFO example. If you have your favorite WFO 3-letter site identifier, you can plug that in with /WFO FGF will get you the Grand Forks Fargo WFO. Again, River Forecast Center, RFC /Northwest RFC, MARFC would get you the Mid-Atlantic one. And then the state example /states, and then the state. And then we do have some water resources regions, which would be WRR, and then /02 will get you, I think there's 13 of them. You can look around the country to see what the water, how the water resource regions are defined. Again, I did want to provide the new static hydrograph link. Again, you need to use the API to retrieve this properly. So I'm going to stress that watching that API webinar. And then part of our team has created this National Water Prediction Products and Services Guide. And I stress that if you want to learn all the details written in a user-friendly fashion, please use this URL to look at that guide. And with that, I think we'll go to the next slide, which is essentially to talk about some of the ways you can interact with us and give us additional feedback. Additional webinars, if we hear from partners and stakeholders that we need to add new dates, we'll be adding those. Our feedback period, again, from November 15th to December 15th. It's a SurveyMonkey link. So please take the time to put in as much information into that survey as you have a chance to do. And any other questions, concerns, we've set up an email at nwps.support@noaa.gov. And that is the wrap up of the content of our webinar. Our plan is to have another webinar tomorrow, and then we'll be posting the best recording of the 2 webinars up to the National Weather Service YouTube channel again. So I did want to highlight that. And with that, I want to thank our other presenters, and Mark and Craig, if you want to come off mute, and Emily, we can start answering the questions that people may have.
Thanks, Lori. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. So yeah, start the questions and we'll start giving the answers.
Excellent. Okay, so the first question is, what is the relationship between this page and the River Forecast Centers? Is this just the national version of RFC pages?
So right now, each River Forecast Center, they have a web page that's viewable from www.weather.gov/the 5-letter River Forecast Center identifier. So the RFCs will still have those pages available to all their users in addition to the NWPS page. The NWPS page will provide much of the RFC information, but they'll have other local information that is above and additional beyond what's on NWPS.
Great, thank you. So the next question is, are settings on the page remembered from session to session?
I don't know if I know the answer to that. What I would say, and Craig, maybe you can answer this. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you bookmark it, they'll be remembered. But if you just they'll go in from either if you just do preview.water.noaa.gov, it will just bring up the national map. But if you bookmark it with a certain set of parameters, then that's what will come up every time you click that bookmark.
Yeah, thank you, Craig.
Thanks, Craig. So the next question is, will there be a static link available to just the hydrographs? I have many links to these incorporated in my situational awareness displays, and it would be difficult to lose that capability.
Yeah, so at the current time frame, we are generating static hydrographs. They generate every 15 minutes. The disadvantage of the static hydrographs is that they're run on a timer every 15 minutes. With the National Water Prediction Services hydrographs, they'll be grabbing that latest information as it goes into the database. So as soon as it's stored in the database, you'll have that forecast or that observation onto that NWPS hydrograph. Again, I would watch the API webinar. The static hydrographs are available, and they're just limited by that 15-minute timer cron for their generation.
Great, thank you. So the next question is, how well will the site work with mobile devices?
Yeah, so I saw that question in the chat, and that was a little bit of a miss on my part during the introduction of the web page. So the web pages are mobile friendly. I would encourage everyone with your mobile device to take that preview.water.noaa.gov link, look at your favorite hydrograph page, look at your favorite map display, go through and give us feedback. And if you're giving us feedback about that mobile display, please include your mobile device type, your operating system on that mobile device. That would be appreciated. But the site is designed to be mobile friendly. And I've personally taken my iPad, and you can use your finger and spin the United States around with your finger. So again, not very useful in that case, but it's mobile friendly.
Great, thanks. Another question is there a schedule for flood inundation for the whole country? Please state when the entire country will be done with the mapping. I heard the end of the next fiscal year, but what is that date?
Yeah, I should have had that answer ready. So yeah, Craig, if you have that and you can display a slide.
I'm putting a link in there right now to the TIM fact sheet that has that in there.
Okay, I appreciate that. So Craig's going to put that answer to that question URL into the chat space. Thanks, Craig.
All right, so we're getting some other questions in live now. The first one I see is, are all the data, including spatial representations, shown in the demos available through the API?
No, so the API will have mostly the point-based information related to the specific gauges. The spatial displays are typically available via REST services. There's a couple locations where the REST services come from at the current time. A lot of them are from a location called HydroViz. And maybe somebody can also chat the HydroViz URL into the chat room for me. Additionally, there's some of the other ones that come from Amazon Cloud of Weather Service, GIS web services. And the link to those web services, you can find those at weather.gov/GIS, and there's a web services link where you can find many of the other ones are available. There may currently be a few at this time that are not publicly available on this particular site, but by the time we implement NWPS officially, I believe all those layers will be publicly available REST services.
Great, thank you. So Next question is, who is in charge of the operation and maintenance of the river gauges?
Yeah, so the National Weather Service does not own most river gauges around the country. There are exceptions. We own several up in Alaska, maybe more in parts of the Pacific Northwest. Generally, the operation and maintenance of the river gauges is done by our fine federal partner, the United States Geological Survey. And also, the coastal gauges might generally be owned by the NOS, the National Ocean Service, which is also part of NOAA. And there's many gauging partners around the country. I'm really too numerous to mention here, but they are valued partners of the National Weather Service.
Perfect. Thank you. So next question is, will all weather watches, warnings, and advisories be available or just limited to water and precipitation? I'm assuming this is on the national page with the polygons.
Yeah, so Craig, why don't you cover that one?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yes, every Weather Service watch warning advisory statement, all of those are available on the map. You can click on the product on the map and see it. It is also available. We did cover that, but when you click on a river gauge point, you will also get the if anything is in effect for that point, you will see a banner for that, and you can click the banner as well. And that we will include both water and non-water hazards there.
Great. Thanks, Craig. Next question is, a user has been checking the flood outlook information at the flood outlook archive link at weather.gov and is wondering if this will still be available in the future, and if so, where that information can be found in the new website.
Okay, so I see that question in the chat. So some of that local configuration for the website, if it's weather.gov/FGF, that means it's from the WFO's website.
Yeah. Hey, Laurie, I'm familiar with that one.
Yeah, go ahead, Craig.
So that's at Grand Forks, and that is off the Grand Forks main weather.gov page. And as far as we know, they should, I'm sure they'll continue that up. Is that something they do separate from AHAPS or separate from this site? So that should still be there.
Great. And okay. Next question is, regarding inundation mapping, can we provide local topographic data for modeling? If not, what topographic data is used for inundation mapping?
Okay, that's a good question. So right now, the topo data that's used for the National Water Model inundation mapping, that's controlled by the National Water Center. I believe most of it is a 10-meter resolution DEM data set. They have looked to incorporate higher resolution information where it's available, but currently for the first 10%, that's what they're utilizing. The method used for inundation mapping is called the HAND method, and HAND stands for height above nearest drainage. And so it's this 10-meter resolution that's determining what that map is going to look like. And again, we have fact sheets that are available, and I think Craig had posted those in the chat room that talked a little bit more about those inundation maps. And we're going to make sure that we link those fact sheets also on the new NWPS webpage. Regarding if you can provide local topo data, what I would say is reach out to your local service hydrologist or river forecast center, whoever you're in touch with, and pose that question to that group, and they'll connect you up with the National Water Center people in charge of incorporating the different resolution DEM information.
Great, thank you. Next question is, how are dam operations factored into the models?
Okay, so for the river forecast centers, the dam operations are factored in a detailed way. The weather service RFCs have relationships with dam operators, and they're working to get their operation information into their hydrologic models every day. So, and especially during flood periods, that information is getting incorporated. With the national water model, right now, I believe there's, and if there's anybody from the Weather Service team online that wants to raise their hand and answer this question, I believe there's 3 methodologies that they're using right now. And I don't exactly, there's 3 methodologies, but I don't remember exactly what they are. So I think I'm going to defer that question to a different reference, and hopefully somebody can chat in the URLs, the URL in the chat area. It's kind of a little beyond the questions I was prepared to answer today, so I apologize for that.
All right. So the last question I see, if anyone has any last minute burning questions, please put them in the chat. But last one I see is St. Paul already has a flood inundation mapping source on the NWS Chanhassen site. Will that inundation capability be moved to NWPS?
Yeah, so that capability is on NWPS, yes.
Yeah, Mike, that's if you just go to the your gauge page and scroll down to the gauge location map, it's included in there. Just click on the link to it at the bottom left of that map.
That's all I see. Thanks.
Okay, with that, I want to thank our speakers again today, but I do also want to share and thank Emily for reading the questions. I also want to tell you we appreciate for you all taking your time and spending it with us today. We know people are busy. Again, if you have any feedback or additional questions after the webinar, please email them to nwpssupport@noaa.gov. And if you want to join us again tomorrow, we'll be back here doing it again. Okay? Thanks, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.